This is Southern Cross News with Joe Palmer.
Good evening everyone and welcome to Southern Cross News. An escalating dispute between the King Island Council and a major airline is boiling over tonight, with fears the disagreement could threaten vital flights. Regional Express is accusing the council of deception and incompetence in its management of the island's airport. But the council claims the airline is using bullying tactics.
Regional Express flies 14,000 passengers to King Island every year, and with 60% of them tourists, it's an essential economic pillar.
Regional airports are just so important to communities such as King Island.
But that pillar is on a knife edge, with the airline saying an increase in airport fees could threaten the viability of its services. The council says it has no choice but to double the current charges, as it's struggling to cover operational costs and lost out $470,000 last year.
I don't think anyone criticises councils for needing to increase fees at times, particularly when operating costs increase. But to increase it double, 100% with a really short lead time is extraordinary in itself.
In a strongly worded statement, the airline condemned what it says was the lies, deception and incompetence of the council, saying the King Island route is one of its most marginal and doubling the charges could lead to a sharp degradation of the air services and may even result in the disappearance of air services in the long term. The island's local member describing the dispute as disturbing.
It'll be a tragedy to see Rex pull out of King Island and for the airport not to be able to function.
But the council's biting back, accusing the company, with headquarters in Singapore and Sydney, of bullying and of price gouging in other regional areas. Both the mayor and the airline declined our requests for an interview today. If the tiff continues to soar, it's the community who'll pay the cost. Louise Hedger, Southern Cross News.
A 73-year-old man has died after crashing his mobility scooter into a parked car in Beaconsfield last weekend. The man was transported to the Launceston General Hospital around 10:20 a.m. on Sunday with serious head injuries. Anyone who witnessed the crash is asked to contact Crime Stoppers. A report is being prepared for the coroner. The distribution of GST profits has continued to divide the political playing field. While every state is set to benefit from a new federal proposal, the question remains, was the decision politically motivated and will it stack up in the long term?
Generous handout or political fix? The proposed new way of distributing GST profits to states made public. But questions now being raised about what really motivated the federal government's apparent generosity.
Your state or territory will be better off. So funding for essential services is guaranteed.
I think that given the fact that the next federal election and the by-elections coming up at the end of the month will be so close, that's why it's such a carefully politically calibrated package.
The federal government will prop up the GST funding pool, adding almost $7 billion of money to the pot. It is still unclear where this windfall of additional funding would come from. Tasmania to receive an extra $112 million. But with 5 by-elections and a federal election on the horizon, there's speculation the carve-up was done to win votes, rather than to create a long-term fix.
All of the states have got a little bit more, so they're better off. So that should, that shouldn't do the coalition too much harm in Braddon at the end of the month.
What my concern is not WA or Queensland or Victoria. What I have to be convinced of, and as does the Premier, is that whether or not this is in the best interest of Tasmania.
This system is moving away from a system that has served us well since Federation, that has enabled Tasmania to deliver the same level of services as every other state and territory.
The Tasmanian budget relies heavily on federal funding, 40% of our money coming from GST. Some looking for a guarantee we would not miss out at a time of political uncertainty.
There is a risk that in 5 or 10 years' time, if the federal government's trying to return a surplus, it might honour its commitment to the GST pool, but it might actually find savings by cutting other payments to the states.
Now we wait and see what the rest of Australia thinks of the plan. Michelle Wisby, Southern Cross News.
The federal court has thrown out a case between Huon Aquaculture, its salmon growing rivals, and the Federal Environment Minister. Huon challenged the federal government's decision to allow an expansion of salmon farming in Macquarie Harbour. But today, Justice Kerr dismissed the matter, publishing 114 pages of reasons for what he described as a complex case.
It's a very technical case and there's a lot of reading to do, so I can't make any further comment at this time until we understand the findings of Justice Kerr.
In a statement, TasSal says it welcomes today's dismissal and remains committed to improving conditions in the harbour. $209 million have been invested into developing Launceston over the last financial year, according to new figures released today by the council. The figure is up 60% from the year prior, which the Mayor says is a sign of growing business confidence.
People start to realise when they come here what a fantastic city we have and what a great city it is, and so people do then want to come and stay here. And when they can get employment, and that's what we're starting to see, a few more people getting employed in different areas, well then they can obviously want to buy a home and upgrade the homes that they buy and move into.
Projects like CH Smith, the relocation of UTAS, Brisbane Street Mall and Civic Square all contributed to the strong year. Meanwhile, for the first time, the state government has released a 10-year plan of ideas and goals for how best to develop Tasmania's infrastructure. Stakeholders from the industry took part in a roundtable think tank today, sharing their vision and project proposals for how Tasmania could be developed into the future.
This pipeline pulls in the GBE activity, the state-owned corporations. We've also included the partnership arrangement we have with TasWater. So what the industry is getting a look at is the broad spectrum of public activity that's in place at the present time.
The plan outlines 247 projects across the state, totalling $13.9 billion, and is hoped to provide security to the industry. It's available for viewing on the Infrastructure Tasmania website. A newly formed activist group is leading the charge to change Tasmanian laws for the LGBTI community. Transforming Tasmania was launched today. Its focus to create greater equality for the gender-diverse community across the state. The group's ultimate goal is to change the Births, Deaths and Marriage Act, which currently only allows transgender people to change the gender on their birth certificate if they've had sexual reassignment surgery.
The right to bodily autonomy, the right to freedom of expression, the right to freedom from discrimination. They're basic human rights. It's a basic recognition of our humanity.
None of these things are radical. We'd like to see Tasmania bring its legislation into line with best practice.
The government said last week it was reviewing legislation which puts strict rules around changing birth certificates. A burst water main created traffic bedlam in Launceston this morning, with commuters impacted on Bathurst, Balfour and Canning streets. TasWater says 10 properties were also affected by the outage. Services are expected to be fully restored by tonight. Tasmanian shipbuilder Incat is facing a skill shortage, with a need for more than 100 extra workers for its projects over the next 4 years. Max Employment and TasTAFE have teamed up to help bridge that gap, also giving long-term unemployed Tasmanians new opportunities.
Aaron and Cameron finished their last day of training today as part of a 4-week course focused on fabrication skills.
We learn how to use big welding machines, like pull them apart and put them back together ourselves. If something goes wrong, we've got to be able to troubleshoot it ourselves. Yeah, so now I know all that.
Their skills and experience badly needed for shipbuilders like Incat, which estimates it needs more than 100 workers to deal with a full order book.
I think they've got a forward order for at least 4 more years, 4 plus years, and I think in that they realised that they needed to increase their workforce by I think double it.
For the group of 10 participants, this course has given them a leg up from long-term unemployment. Aaron has been without a job for 13 years.
Most people are after experience, so I've had no experience in pretty much anything, so...
26-year-old Cameron has struggled to get a foot in the door to turn his life around.
If you really want to achieve something or not, it's all about you. I want a job and, I want to show my children,
I got 4 kids, so I thought I got to do something with my life before it's too late.
Participants are set to showcase their new skills at INCAT next week, with the hopes of securing trade assistant positions, a potential stepping stone to an apprenticeship.
From the last group, they all got employment that actually went and did the assessment exercises. So hopefully at the end of this, all the candidates that go down and do it will basically get employment with INCAT. So
Michael Breen, Southern Cross News.
The Northwest Coast is set to see sixes fly when the region's first women's Big Bash game hits West Park. Cricket Tasmania says the deal is part of an ongoing push to take the game statewide.
Meg Phillips may be one of the Hurricanes' handiest all-rounders, but playing top-level cricket at West Park will be something new for her and her team.
It's a great game to come and watch the women's cricket at the moment, so look, we're just really excited to get the opportunity to come up here.
The ground will host at least 1, possibly 2 women's Big Bash games next season, with the Hurricanes' opponents to be named in the coming weeks. The deal getting over the line thanks to an upgrade to the electronic scoreboard.
I think you'll only need our runs column because we plan to give the opposition a touch-up.
Launceston will also host a women's Big Bash game after the success of last year's doubleheader. Cricket Tasmania is shifting the games from Blunston Arena in an effort to represent all cricket fans.
It's always been my vision to have elite content played across the state.
And give the next generation the chance to see their favourites wield the willow.
Keep trying to get involved as much cricket as you can. There's so many pathways coming along now with women's cricket in the state.
West Park pipped bids from Latrobe and Devonport to host the games. Tom Johnson, Southern Cross News.
Latrobe's most delicious day of the year is now only a month away. The Chocolate Winterfest kicked off its official launch today with this delectable demonstration by Anva's chocolatier Igor Van Gerwen. The Chock-a-Block celebration of all things sweet will feature a mix of old and new flavours.
It's a great opportunity to get out there during the middle of winter, so to speak, and to enjoy some activities and indulge in chocolate. What could be better during the middle of winter?
The 15th annual Chocolate Winterfest will be held in Latrobe on August 12. Organisers of this year's Junction Arts Festival are promising it will be bigger and better than ever before, with more Tasmanian artists, shows and food vendors taking part. Festival goers will also be able to step inside some of the city's hidden and historical buildings as part of Open House Launceston.
So out of the 30 events, 26 of the events feature all Tasmanian artists. That's singers, dancers, performers, you name it, and it's going to be an amazing celebration of everything Tasmanian.
The festival will run from September 5 to 9. Workplaces, schools, clubs and service groups across the state are being dared to take part in a fundraising initiative with the colourful twist. Dare to Rewear was launched today with City Mission staff showing off some very interesting outfits. The campaign involves groups wearing clothing bought from an op shop and donating a gold coin to City Mission's Winter Appeal.
We do have such a throwaway society in terms of fashion and disposable fashion, so it's a really great way to get people to start to think about being a little bit more conscious of their environment by recycling their clothes.
This is the first year the event has been run. Now let's take a look at the day's business and finance news with thanks to Tasplan, your local super fund. The Australian market has hit a new decade high as Asian markets delivered a muted response to the start of President Donald Trump's tariffs on $34 billion worth of Chinese imports. The ASX 200 index has risen by 56.8 points. A short time ago, the Australian dollar was trading at 74.07 US cents and 108.69 New Zealand cents.
The TSL's 2 northern clubs are about to face off tonight. Despite Launceston's horror run of form, coach Sam Lonergan says off-field disruption is not to blame.
After losing its last 4 games on the trot, Launceston has gone from a flag favourite to brave battler. But Sonny Whiting's departure to the NTFA hasn't caused any shocks to the system, according to Sam Lonergan.
I think more of it is, out of the last 5 weeks we've had 4 trips to Hobart. We probably let one slip that we possibly by the ladder should have won, which was the Kingborough one.
There's no road trip tonight, but the task isn't any easier. North Launceston has thumped the crosstown rival both times they've met so far this season. But Lonergan says the absence of any hype this time will help the team relax.
Realistically, it's probably going to be the least daunting. Now the shackles are off our group and there's no real build-up, there's no real hype behind the group. They're coming off 4 losses and they get to go out there and have a full swing.
Deloraine and Longford will have an extra piece of silverware to play for this weekend in the NTFA, a new trophy dedicated to Isaac Maxie Walter, who had played for both clubs.
Such a nice young fellow, do anything for anyone, and he was a really good footballer.
The foundation Make Runs Maxi was established in Isaac's name. It uses sport to raise awareness of mental health.
From our point of view, it's actually a really positive thing to see that we can actually use sports as a tool to start a conversation around mental health.
The clubs are aiming to raise $5,000 at a raffle and auction at tomorrow's clash in Deloraine. First meets second in the NPL this weekend. Launceston City is stacked with former Devonport Strikers players, but the coach says keeping top spot provides a bigger spark.
The rivalry will be there. I think the first game was always the cracker, if you want to say. This one, I think, now is back to normality already. It's just another 3 points.
The state Siebel teams are on the road this weekend. At 9 wins and 7 losses, the Northwest Thunder says it's punching above its weight so far this season.
I wouldn't like to be playing us either here or away coming into a final. I reckon we'll challenge any group.
The side beat Dandenong last week, but they'll be looking for a better start out of the blocks.
Having some momentum into the back end of the year will be really important.
And in netball, Northern Hawks and Arrows are in a top-of-the-table clash at the Silverdome tomorrow night.
We had a bit of a shock to us when we played Devon the other week, and that really gave us the kick that we needed to up the intensity at training. And we had a really good win against Burnie on the weekend just gone in Ulverston, and the team's really happy with how we're sitting at the moment.
Good evening, a real winter's day today with not much rise in temperatures from our overnight lows. Hobart 11 today, Launceston and Burnie 12, Devonport a top of 13 degrees, and that was the high around the state recorded by Smithton, St Helens, Friendly Beaches and the Islands. Low Head 12 today, Ouse and Strawn 11, Grove 10, Lyawini a low of 1 and a high of 3. Generally windy and showery, overnight 74 millimetres fell at Pine Tree Rivulet, while today 16 the best total at Butler's Gorge. We have mid to low cumulus cloud over the central and east of the state, while a high-level convective level band of cloud moved over the west. A lot of cloud emanates from the complex low to our south. A cold air mass sits over the southern half of the mainland. Another low is over the Bight. A warmer onshore flow generated the cloud over the coasts of Queensland and New South Wales. Tomorrow, a surface trough and cold front join forces to cross Tasmania. A high moves over western areas of the country. The early strong northwesterlies will shift southwesterly tomorrow morning and will sit at around 25 to 35 knots, swells at 4 to 6 metres. A severe weather warning for damaging winds over the north coast and Bass Strait Islands, a gale warning for all coastal waters, small craft wind alert for the lakes. We also have a minor flood warning for the North Esk and Macquarie rivers, a flood watch for northeast catchments along with the Huon and Derwent basins. So a bit going on in the air. Tomorrow, a showery day for Hobart, 11 the top, 8 for Maydena, a windy day and 8 also for Oatlands. Launceston Saturday will be showery to start with. I'll ease later in the day, 13 the top, 12 for Devonport, -1 overnight for Lyawini, a high of 3 again. For Burnie, a showery windy day, 11 the top, 11 also for Strawn and Marrawar with that same forecast. And for St Helens tomorrow, a morning shower, 13 the top, 12 for Swansea and Orford. On Sunday, showers over the west, south and central areas, snow over the southern highlands to 700 metres, fine for the rest of the state. Fine on Monday apart from a shower over the west and south, and the same forecast for Tuesday with west to southwest winds. Partly cloudy in Perth, cool showery days for Adelaide and Melbourne, and no wonder all the politicians are here in Tasmania. Who wants to be in Canberra's weather? 9 tomorrow. Sydney twice as warm as that, and an early shower clearing from Brisbane. Partly cloudy at the moment, 8 degrees in Hobart, 10 degrees in Launceston, cloudy in Devonport and 11. Joe, I don't like this Thursday night football. If your team loses, Friday's a real downer. I've had enough.
I know, but you are grumpy every day of the week, so it's not really that much different for today. That's all from the team for now. Have a lovely evening. See you a bit later.